On the eve of history,
you got to get out there and vote.
Can you feel it?
Final push to get your vote as the race for the White House enters its final hours.
Families taken to the point of bankruptcy, battling for custody of their children. Why some call it an unfair tactic, and what DCS has to say about those accusations. Fox 17 News at 9 starts now.
Middle Tennessee's only primetime news. This is Fox 17 News at 9, your Code Red station.
The plan just has very little benefit for very high price.
We can see measured improvement in our transit system.
Continuing coverage tonight on Mayor Freddie O'Connell's transit plan as Nashville residents get ready to go to the polls and vote on it. Good evening, everybody. I'm Scott Couch.
And I'm Kelly Avellino in for Megan O'Halloran tonight. Now, one of the issues that supporters say the transit plan addresses is pedestrian safety, which is top of mind after yet another person was struck downtown. Fox 17 News' Caitlin Miller is live in Midtown breaking down the proposed project fueled by a sales tax increase. Caitlin.
Kelly, Scott, I'm on Bunbury Street right now where a lot of construction has been taking place for a new bikeway design. Now, this is different than the transit proposal, but I'm going to have our photographer show you what it looks like right now where I'm standing. It used to be parking spots. Now you can see that the bikeway has extended so that it's safer for bicyclists. And this is a project similar to what the new transit plan will have.
The proposed transit plan on the ballot is designed to make Metro's bus system 24/7, add miles of sidewalks and bike lanes, and synchronize traffic signals. Metro Councilman Jacob Coupin believes Nashville desperately needs this.
It's going to cost the average family between $70 and $100 a year. So for less than $10 a month, we're going to see all these improvements.
While former Metro Councilwoman Emily Evans believes it's unsafe, unnecessary, and unfair.
When you put in a bike lane and you put in a wider sidewalk or an additional sidewalk without actually acquiring any right-of-way, you leave less room for vehicles.
Evans says this congestion on the streets could cause a lot more issues. And she adds that the sidewalks are only going to be built if it intersects with a bus stop or transit center.
We're going to have things like complete street treatments, additional spending on high-end networks, and also getting folks out of cars and into buses.
Coupin says having buses operate 24/7 with improved connectivity will hopefully help with congestion. But Evans is worried about safety.
There's no plan to keep this bus system safe, and there's nothing in the operating budget that assumes there'll be more police protection, transit police, nothing like that.
The mayor's office predicts that this project will cost about $3.1 billion, but state auditors are saying that it would cost double this. Reporting live from Midtown, I'm Caitlin Miller, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station.
And you can look at that state audit for yourself on fox17.com. Just search transit.
That transit vote just one of several items on the ballot here in Nashville tomorrow, including a U.S. Senate race. In that one, incumbent Marsha Blackburn being challenged by State Representative Gloria Johnson. Both are making their final push on the campaign trail.
We're continuing to work on getting inflation down by across-the-board spending cuts, reducing what the federal government spends, and making certain we make the 2017 tax cuts permanent.
We need leaders that respect the human dignity of every person in this state.
And as the campaigning is winding down, election leaders are now putting the final touches on all the polling places across the state, including Rutherford County. Polls are open tomorrow from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m.
And as we count down to Election Day, pollsters say this is shaping up to be the closest presidential race in history. Fox 17 News' Matt Galka is taking a look, and during this story, we want to hear from you. Go ahead and scan the QR code that you'll see on your screen to let us know what you think.
More than 75 million people have already voted heading into Election Day. It's less than 2020 when the COVID pandemic altered how many voted, but the numbers are significantly higher than non-pandemic elections. Part of it could be due to an about-face from former President Donald Trump.
So the polls are open for early voting in Georgia every day from now till November 1st. You got to get out there and vote, but most importantly, just vote. whichever way you want to do it.
Trump had previously told supporters not to trust early voting and vote by mail. But now Republicans are outpacing Democrats in some key swing states, including Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada, and Arizona. Georgia has already amassed nearly 80% of their 2020 voting total through early voting this year. And in North Carolina, they've shattered records. Almost 4.5 million people voted early, despite the state still dealing with devastating damage from Hurricane Helene. The campaigns are trying to be optimistic about certain demographics breaking their way.
In one of the most consequential elections of our lifetime, and we have momentum. It is on our side. Can you feel it?
Harris is dominating Trump with women voters, while Trump has an even bigger lead with male voters, according to some surveys. Both candidates are hoping to shore up Latino votes as well. A Trump-supporting comedian's comments about Puerto Rico and garbage led to an all-out effort from Harris to try and capitalize.
No somos basura, somos más.
While Trump hopes to maintain gains he's made with Hispanic voters.
I've done more for Puerto Rico than any president by far, nobody close.
It's nearly impossible for pollsters to figure out who's in the lead.
And in a very close race, small changes in turnout can have a huge impact.
And both campaigns will be watching turnout very closely come election night. Reporting in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka.
And during that story, we had a QR code linking you to our poll asking what issue is the deciding factor in your vote for president. More than 700 people weighing in tonight, and here are the most mentioned reasons on your screen. Let's take a quick look here. Economy and inflation ranking in at 52% of those who voted said that was their number one issue. More than 1,700 voting, I should say. Border and immigration second at 36%, and then abortion coming in well behind at 5%. Thanks so much for weighing in.
Staying with politics now, with the presidential election so close, according to the polls, we wanted to break down exactly how Fox 17 News will be delivering the most accurate results to you. Now, just so you understand, we do not call a race until the Associated Press does, because the AP uses provable facts before they share information. Essentially, it's data from state and local election offices and not from any of the campaigns. Now, in some cases, the races are called before all the votes have been counted. Now, if that happens, it only happens when there is no other way for the candidate to take over the top candidate, the winner. So if not, the Associated Press will simply say that this race is too close to call.
And Fox 17 News will continue bringing you in-depth analysis of all the key issues. As soon as the polls close tomorrow night, we'll have the latest results both on air and online at fox17.com. And for more on all the national races, check out the national news desk on the CW channel in CW Nashville. Election night coverage begins at 7 p.m.
Our LPRs have been extremely effective.
In Operation Crime and Justice, two national satellite cities say that their license plate readers are a very important crime-fighting tool. Now, this as Nashville Mayor Freddie O'Connell continues to wait to fully roll them out here. Fox 17 News' Karen Aguilar is live outside the North Police Precinct with both sides of this LPR argument.
Scott, Metro Police Chief John Drake has said LPRs make us safer, and he's waiting for the mayor to implement this important tool. LPRs for the Metro Police Department were approved by Metro Council last year. Since then, the city paused a full rollout. Nearby, the Hendersonville Police Department has had LPRs for several years, placed throughout the city.
We have seen tremendous success with it.
Lieutenant Gagnon says after a successful pilot program, the city quickly moved forward.
We almost immediately got backing from our local government.
Metro Police saw more than 100 felony arrests with its pilot program, but Mayor Freddie O'Connell says the policy needs to be fine-tuned.
We just received feedback this week from MMPD that we had been waiting on about our LPR policies, and we are intending to take that right back before the Metro Council.
That policy dealing with privacy concerns. Gagnon tells us how Hendersonville dealt with privacy.
There's retention periods on records, so the stuff's not held forever.
We also looked at the success of LPRs in Brentwood.
We've assisted other agencies with some major felony crimes personal crimes that they may not have solved otherwise.
Colvin tells me they are placed in thoroughfares and parks and only keep information stored for a short period as a way to address any privacy concerns.
We asked the mayor for an update on where they are in the process of fine-tuning that policy. We haven't heard back yet. If so, we'll keep you updated. Reporting live in North Nashville, Karen Aguilar, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station.
Karen, thank you. This is an issue Fox 17 News has been tracking closely for months now. If you'd like to see our previous reporting on the use of license plate readers and whether they'd be good for Nashville, go to the Fox Nashville YouTube channel.
Here's the accusation that DCS has a secret strategy to wear families down. We'll tell you all about it next.
And taking a live look now from a Trump rally in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where the former president will be spending the last night before the elections talking to supporters in that swing state. Our in-depth election coverage continues.
And coming up, we'll talk more about our Election Day forecast, when we could expect the rain to move in. It's in your Fox 17 Code Red forecast.
Does the Tennessee Department of Children's Services intentionally drag out custody battles with parents? That's the claim from one national group, a veteran attorney, and a dozen families who believe DCS uses the courts to drain families of their financial resources.
That's quite a charge. Fox 17 News' Dennis Fairview tonight investigating the allegation that DCS has a strategy in doing what we just described, and that it is bankrupting families who are fighting for their kids.
The idea is simple. DCS has a stable of lawyers who are on the company payroll, but working families have to come up with cash to fight DCS for their kids. Who do you think wins that fight?
We filled the Fox 17 studio with people desperate to keep their kids out of state custody. Moms, dads, aunts, grandmas, and grandpas, all people who have suffered not only emotionally, but financially. Great-grandmother Ruth Gardner has been to court 7 times fighting for her 4 great-grandchildren.
You go to court, nothing happens. You come back, nothing happens. It's always the same old, same old. It's like a repeat.
Except it's all new money you're spending.
Every penny, yep.
How much did you spend, and at what point did that just break you?
I spent over $20,000, and at that point, I just didn't have no more. I mean, I couldn't do it.
Former family law attorney Connie Reguli spent a quarter of a century battling DCS.
The parents get caught up in the system, and they end up coming to court over and over and over and over. Crazy. Like, we're going to set a status hearing, we're going to set a review hearing, we're going to set a foster care review board, we're going to set a permanency plan hearing. Parents are going to court every month. You know, one recent mom in Rutherford County, in just over a year, she'd been to court 33 times, and she still didn't have a final hearing.
Cheryl Huff from the Middle Tennessee office of the National Action Network is collecting cases for a class action suit against DCS. She thinks the deck is stacked against families and for the powerful agency.
Well, it's going to cost you $10,000. It's going to cost you $15,000. Who has $10,000 and $15,000 when you're trying to live? When you're trying to maintain a home and take care of your children?
To make things even worse, the juvenile court system appears to be in violation of its own law. Quote, in all cases in which a child is in detention or been placed out of the home by court order, it shall be heard within 30 days of the date the child has been placed outside of the home. For good cause shown, the adjudicatory hearing may be continued beyond the 30 days. So the court is supposed to have a very good reason for going beyond the 30 days.
They are required to fully get through the petition, fully adjudicate the petition, fully give the parent a trial within 30 days. If they have your kid, they're supposed to do it within 30 days. And they never do. Never. In 28 years of practice in law, never did they have a 30-day hearing.
We asked DCS why they can't resolve these cases in the legal time frame. Quote, it's not a tactic. Most of the cases we are dealing with are quite complex and can't be wrapped up in 30 days. They involve multiple issues, including neglect, abuse, drug use, issues where caregivers need services, and resolution in 30 days isn't possible or in the best interest of children. So while the cases drag on, strange and terrible things can happen. Consider Ruth Gardner. She lost her life savings. She lost the 4 great-grandbabies. She just keeps losing. DCS has now reduced her visitation to 1 supervised 15-minute phone call a week.
I mean, it hurts to talk about, but from seeing them every day to a phone call supervised 15 minutes. That's unfair. It's unfair because I've been there from day one.
When you fill a room with people like we did, you fill a room with stories. We are just getting started. I'm staying on the case with more stories to come and more questions for DCS. I'm Dennis Ferrier, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station.
Let's talk more about Election Day weather. The good news is it looks like the majority of the day is going to be dry for those headed to the polls. It's going to be a warm and breezy afternoon with temperatures soaring into the low 80s. In fact, it could be a record high for us for tomorrow. But as I mentioned, most of the rain should hold off until we get into the evening hours. I can't rule out a stray shower in the afternoon, but the majority of rain is expected to arrive in the evening. The front will be to our west for the day, and as I mentioned, we're kind of on the front edge of this cold front that'll be pushing through. That will offer us a stray shower chance, but the majority of it won't arrive until later in the evening hours, and that's going to be overnight into early Wednesday. So 10 a.m. we're right around 74 degrees up to about 80 as we head towards 2, looking at a mix of sun and clouds. In addition to that, breezy winds picking up for us as well. Walking you through future track, a little bit of that cloud cover building in overnight, mainly mid to high variety in cloud cover, and then more low-level clouds as that front gets a little closer to us. Here's 12 noon, and I mentioned a spot shower or two, definitely possible as we go through the afternoon, but there's the main line. This has the makings of being a slow-moving line and may not offer a lot of rain for some while it offers a lot for others. Along and west to 65 looks to have the best chance of seeing some decent rainfall out of this event. This is Tuesday evening right as the polls are closing here, so showers possible through Clarksville, Hopkinsville over to Camden. Notice heavy rain picking up as we head towards 10 o'clock, still dry in Nashville and places east. And then as we get into the overnight, more of those showers right along the edge here in Nashville, but most of that rain stays west. So this looks to be, too, a sharp cutoff where some may find a lot of rain and others may not see very much rain at all. And that would be mainly east of I-65. Murfreesboro, Cookeville, Lebanon, McMinnville, probably not going to see a ton of rain in the next few days. This is 1 p.m. through Wednesday. Wednesday night into early Thursday, we'll continue to see chances for showers. If you don't see rain in the next few days with this front coming through, don't worry, there are other chances. But a sharp cutoff, as you can see here, half-inch or more to the west, less than a half to a quarter as we head to the east. We'll talk more about the windy conditions and more in the tropics brewing, all coming up.
Preparing for election night in Tennessee, why the FBI is opening up a special command post in Nashville.
And right now, a live look at the White House from the nation's capital, where President Biden is spending his final weeks on the job. Our coverage leading you to election night in America continues. As we continue our election coverage tonight, the FBI putting a command post here in Nashville to protect against any potential election-related threats.
It's going to be home base for election operations tomorrow and remain open 24/7 through Wednesday once the election is over. Now, if you experience voter intimidation or want to report election abuse anywhere in Tennessee of any kind, call the FBI's local command post. That number 1-800-CALL-FBI.
Happening now, metal security fences are going up in Washington, D.C. ahead of Election Day. The Secret Service put up 8-foot-high fences around the White House, the Treasury Department building, the U.S. Capitol, and Vice President Harris's home in the district. Some businesses just blocks away from the White House are also boarding up their places in an attempt to avoid any type of vandalism, any violence, any damage. Angry voters caused damage to some businesses after both the 2016 and 2020 presidential elections.
I was here 4 years ago, and it was crazy down here. So it's not shocking. I'm kind of used to it at this point.
Both Capitol and local police officers in D.C. say they are prepared for any possible unrest in the nation's capital.
Well, come tomorrow night, the winning candidate will need to reach the magic number 270 electoral college votes to win. But it might be a few days before we know who is our next president if there's not a landslide victory by either one of the candidates. Now, there are some swing states here that you see in green that could really hold things up if the decision really does come down to a small number of votes. Some states, for example, Pennsylvania, a major battleground state, doesn't start opening and counting mail-in ballots until the morning of Election Day. Same thing over here in Wisconsin. And we don't want you to forget about recounts. If the outcome is a very, very narrow margin, for example, in Arizona, there are mandatory recounts, the whole state counting all those ballots over if the difference is a 5% margin or less. And we can tell you that in the last presidential election, President Biden won by just 0.3%.
Just ahead tonight on Fox 17 News at 9, looking for outside help, the local plan to end rape kit backlogs in Nashville.
And coping with election anxiety, one local doctor is seeing an uptick in patients and has some expert advice.
3.5 years really from the date of my assault. I don't know where my rape kit is. I don't know if it's ever been tested. I know nothing about it.
In Operation Crime and Justice, victims advocates weigh in as Metro Council considers a plan to outsource rape kit testing to private companies.
Now, this plan calls for the use of grant money to send these kits from Nashville to a private lab so we can get results faster. Fox 17 News' Kylie Walker has more on the plan, including what victim rights advocates think about it.
A roughly $240,000 grant from the U.S. Department of Justice would allow Metro Police to outsource sexual assault kits with funding through September of 2026. Now that includes $118,000 for next year and roughly $125,000 for the following year.
With only 13 staff members in the Metro Police Forensic Biology Unit, Metro's grant application submitted in June says the rising request for kits is slowing turnaround time.
The time it takes of just sitting and waiting to get the results back can be very traumatic.
If done right, Lorraine McGuire with the Sexual Assault Center believes this resolution could be a positive step forward for survivors.
My gut is really excited, but the realist in me is a little skeptic.
Sexual assault victims advocate Danielle Pyle has questions.
Who are those vendors that get to do the external testing?
We asked this question to city leaders, but could not get an answer.
And so when I did my rape kit, you trust the process. You want to trust the process that's going to get processed, and the DNA is going to be on it to sort of prove your story. We beg people to believe us, and we shouldn't have to.
Pyle says she was sexually assaulted in April of 2021, but no charges were filed due to lack of evidence. And to this day, her rape kit's whereabouts are still unknown, and the time limit to file for a civil suit has expired.
In addition to that heartbreak of no justice is not knowing where my rape kit ever ended up.
3 years later, Pyle is losing hope it will ever be found.
I've asked where it is, and they said, we'll look into it and we'll get back to you. Surely it's at the crime lab where it should be. Well, surely it should be, but, no one is certain that that's where it lives.
Earlier this year, Pyle helped pass Danielle's Law in Tennessee. It extends the statute of limitations for civil suits in sexual violence cases from 1 year to 3 to 5 years.
There are still so many questions here, including who are those private vendors and also what happens when that grant money runs out. Also, what is the current backlog time frame and what will it be when outsourced? These are all answers I'll look for before the Thursday meeting. For now, reporting in Nashville, Kylie Walker, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station.
And you can see Kylie's entire conversation with sexual assault survivor Danielle Pyle on the Fox Nashville YouTube page. Now, added stress and anxiety from this presidential election cycle certainly impacting many of us. How one local mental health expert says we can all cope.
And right now, a live look from Philadelphia, where the Harris campaign is holding a rally tonight. Those appear to be the steps that Rocky ran up in the movies. Tremendous set. The crowd there waiting for the vice president to arrive. She spends her final night before the election in this important battleground state. Our in-depth coverage heading up to election night continues in a minute.
Hey there, I'm Jennifer Waddell from Fox 17 News this morning. Of course, Election Day just hours away, and we'll be tracking everything you'll need to know before you head to the polls as they open at 7 o'clock Tuesday morning, whether it's the local races, local issues, or the race for the presidency. We've got you fully covered all day Tuesday on Fox 17 News this morning. We'll see you starting at 4 a.m.
As we get closer to election night in America, the future of our nation is impacting the mental health of many people across the country. 69% of adults say that this election is a top cause of stress in their lives. That's according to the American Psychological Association. Joining us now with how to cope with election-related anxiety is Dr. Joseph Sharp, a psychiatrist and chief medical officer at Ascension St. Thomas Behavioral Health Hospital. Dr. Sharp, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
So how stressed are Americans when it comes to this presidential election compared to previous election cycles that you've seen?
Well, there definitely feels like an uptick, which the numbers do reflect. It really permeates every sort of layer of society. People really are paying attention, and I think that increased level of anxiety actually breeds more anxiety. So we are seeing an uptick in that.
What do you think is contributing to that election-related stress? One contributing factor I could potentially theorize is social media. More people on social media, and they're just constantly being inundated with other people's opinions.
That is one aspect, and that will go into the section where we talk about what can we do about this anxiety. But it is constant screen time, and it just seems to be like a perfect storm of things that can generate anxiety.
Are you seeing an uptick in patients talking with you and your colleagues about stress related to this political election?
Most certainly. It really is on a lot of people's minds.
Very interesting. So what can we do here? What do you recommend people do to help alleviate some of this anxiety that is probably mounting by the day as we get closer to the election?
Well, that's a great question. And, I get asked that a lot. The simple answer is to really set boundaries in regards of your news consumption, limiting screen time and limiting time on your phone or the television, limit doom scrolling. At this stage of the game, none of it's going to change your mind. All it's going to do is make you more anxious. Remain civil. Don't villainize someone unless you want to be villainized. Don't focus on things that are out of your control. That is just pointless worry and anxiety.
And Dr. Sharp, whatever the outcome on election night, what is your advice for voters whose candidate does not win?
That is another great question. And, undoubtedly that will happen. So, what do I say to those people is to stay focused on the present, stay focused on your life and your surroundings. And, what will exactly change, and it may not be as much as you think. But also, recommend to, turn off the TV and to, talk with, friends and family and spend time outdoors, exercise. Don't try to jump down, the rabbit hole of what if. Stay calm and stay in the moment.
Dr. Sharp, psychiatrist and chief medical officer at Ascension St. Thomas Behavioral Health. Thank you so much for your insight and helping us through this election cycle.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Lot to unpack there. Well, in tonight's Fox 17 News viewer poll, we are asking what you think about all the election polls out there and the predictions. Specifically, whether you believe the polls that say former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris are locked in a dead heat in that presidential race. Clearly, this is something people don't mind talking about. 1,284 votes. The majority say we don't believe the polls that say this is a dead heat. They're not thinking that it is. 12% say they do. This poll's live right now. If you would like to weigh in, we'd love for you to do it. Just scan the QR code there on the right-hand side of your screen. It will take you directly to our poll. If you want to get there the old-fashioned way, our handle is @FoxNashville. We'll take another look at these numbers for you coming up tonight on Fox 17 News at 10.
A Nashville toddler killed by fentanyl. The new details from police in the death of Ariel Rose.
Also ahead, cracking down the changes to the bill Metro Council is considering this week about monitoring affiliations and social media postings of police officers.
Overcoming obstacles, how voters in some parts of swing state North Carolina will be casting their ballots as hurricane cleanup there is ongoing.
And we are not done yet. We are watching the tropics, a system that could have impact here in the U.S. We'll talk about it coming up. Like way too much.
Tonight we're learning new details from Metro Police in the death of toddler Ariel Rose. The 23-month-old died from fentanyl poisoning 2 years ago while under the care of a couple of babysitters.
Fox 17 News' Amanda Chin has been following this story since the beginning and has our update.
A Metro Police detective took the stand last week at a bond reduction hearing for one of the suspects, Melissa Sutton. Detective John Grubbs of the Youth Services Division details what Sutton told him and investigators at the scene, which helped them make those arrests. Both have been charged with felony murder.
Detective Grubbs believes Sutton and Jesse Mashburn, the second suspect, took care of Ariel Rose quite often. Grubbs says Ariel's aunt, who had custody of her at the time, would drop Ariel off at the transitional housing facility to visit her grandmother. The detective goes on to testify when they responded to the scene, there were some items located that looked concerning, ultimately testing positive for fentanyl and meth. Sutton had mentioned to officers she had a history with drugs, particularly heroin, which he says Sutton talked about using a few days before Ariel's death.
Her statement of there were strong possibility of there were drugs being in the apartment, which we found, and then along with some paraphernalia that tested positive for those, specifically fentanyl. We felt as though that at some point the child had ingested, whether she picked something up off the floor, we don't know exactly.
The detective did make mention of body camera footage several times throughout this testimony. I've requested that footage, but we have been denied since this is an ongoing investigation. Now on December 5th, this judge will decide whether she will reduce Melissa Sutton's bond. Reporting in the studio, I'm Amanda Chin, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station.
Looking ahead now to Thursday, when a special Metro Council meeting is scheduled to take place, and lawmakers will take up a bill originally drafted to monitor the affiliations of Metro police officers and the comments that officers make on social media. As Fox 17 News' Johnny Maffey explains, the bill's sponsor has made some changes.
The Metro Clerk's office did confirm the meeting moved from its usual slot Tuesday to Thursday due to Election Day. Now, one thing that will be brought up is a bill regarding what law enforcement can and cannot say online, and some new language added since we began tracking it back in the summer. This bill, filed in July by Metro Councilor Jeff Prep-T, he says is to keep the credibility of Metro agencies and also prevent hate groups from recruiting local first responders. If this bill were to pass, there is new language showing that it would stand for all Metro employees, not just law enforcement. They would not be allowed to post, like, joke, meme, or retweet things that advocate for racism, violence, or other forms of discrimination. And it's a bill that has had a lot of back and forth at these meetings in the chambers, and that's something we will be paying attention to coming up on Thursday. In Nashville, Johnny Maffey, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station.
In the swing state of North Carolina, they're setting up tents right now as makeshift polling sites for voters in areas still recovering from Hurricane Helene. Now, the state's Board of Elections made that move after the catastrophic flooding wiped out many polling locations.
Well, the roads are treacherous. It's hard to cross. Our fire stations have been wiped out. That's where we usually vote, and they had 75 inches of water in them. They're not operational. It takes a minute to get to the public library in Black Mountain. A 15-minute drive is an hour and a half now. So this is going to mean everything to the people on this mountain. I think there's a change that's needed, and we're hoping that a change will come. It's all the hope that we have left.
Voting equipment was expected to arrive in those affected areas across the state today to be set up for voters tomorrow.
And once again, I was talking about how warm we are expected for Election Day. In fact, if we hit the forecast high, it will at least tie the record set back just a few years ago in 2017. And then we're going to continue that pattern into Wednesday. Temperatures 78 is the forecast. The record is 79 in 2023. This was just last year. Just for perspective, the average high for this time of year, 66. So this is not normal. Temperatures quite warm for us for this time of year. One of the reasons why we will be on the warm side for Tuesday will be the fact that we've got these breezy winds setting up for us. 15 to 20 mile per hour winds, could see a few gusts up to 25. It'll be pretty typical of what we've been experiencing the past few days. We had a pretty blustery Sunday, breezy afternoon today. Really no different for tomorrow as we continue to see those windy conditions. In addition to that, for Tuesday, and this is mainly for Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning, there is a very small risk for excessive rainfall or a very small risk for some spot flooding. These are the areas that would have that biggest problem with spot flooding, and really I think it's even a little bit more west towards Clarksville, Dickson, and Hopkinsville, and that's just because this looks to be a slow-moving front that'll be moving in. Now everybody needs some rainfall here. Again, it's been kind of feast or famine, but we have had very little rain in the past 30 days compared to our average rainfall, what we typically find. We have plenty of chances on the way for the week, so if you don't see rain over the next 24 to 36 hours, there'll be more opportunities. We're also talking about the newest named storm in the Caribbean. This is Tropical Storm Raphael, and we're expecting it to become a hurricane in the next 12 to 24 hours. Max winds at 45 miles per hour. We'll put a track on it quickly here. Expected to strengthen and move over Cuba. And then as we get into the late part of this week, more so into the weekend, it moves out into the Gulf of Mexico. I will say that the forecast from the Hurricane Center becomes very low confidence as we go into the weekend here. So there is potential that we could find impact in some shape or form along the Gulf states as we head into the weekend and into early next week. Something we will be watching closely throughout the week. Highs in the 80s tomorrow, 70s with chances for rain basically every day.
Feeling blue with the change of the seasons, how to cope now that it's getting dark so early.
Shattering records, Tennessee's statewide early voting totals. Plus, if you haven't voted yet, we're going to tell you where you can find your polling site tomorrow. In health news tonight, now that it's getting dark much earlier with daylight saving time, it can impact the emotional health for some.
Absolutely. It's called seasonal affective disorder, SAD for short. You know, it's a mental health condition linked to the changing of the seasons, and it's a real thing. Seasonal depression comes along with feelings of sadness for some folks, hopelessness. It can include a lack of energy, focus. Some people even have a different appetite during this time of year. Psychology experts say about 5% of the population suffers from seasonal depression, and doctors say, fortunately, there are many helpful treatments.
The end of daylight savings time is a really big trigger for a lot of people with winter depression. They tend to come out of the work for that first time on Monday, and it's suddenly dark, which was not the case the Friday before. There are many helpful treatments for seasonal depression. They include antidepressant medications, bright light therapy, and cognitive behavioral talk therapy.
Doctors say keeping a regular sleep schedule and walking outside even on cloudy days can help. They say people with more severe cases really need to see a therapist.
Up next, how many people in Tennessee have already voted? We're breaking down the record number of early voters.
Record number of Tennesseans have already cast ballots ahead of Election Day tomorrow.
Election officials say 2.2 million people across the state already cast an early ballot. That's more than 45% of eligible voters, and that's a record. So if you're holding out for tomorrow to vote on the big day, you can check your polling site online, or we've got a link for you on fox17.com. Polls close here in Tennessee at 7 p.m. tomorrow night.